Hi, I'm Alisa Gumbs, the Vice President and Deputy Chief Content Officer at Black Enterprise, and welcome to Moguls in the Making. I'm so excited for the conversation we're about to have because we're getting the chance to go one-on-one with one of the most successful entrepreneurs on our 40 under 40 list to talk about how she grew her startup into one of the hottest businesses that's literally on everyone's lips. Please welcome the founder and CEO of the boundary-breaking beauty brand, The Lip Bar, Melissa Butler. Melissa, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's jump right in. The first two things on your bio on the Lip Bar website are Wall Street expat and Shark Tank reject. Like, boom. You have a classic story of ditching corporate America to follow a passion. Tell us about your life before the Lip Bar and what made you take the leap into entrepreneurship.
First of all, I'm really excited to be in conversation with you today. I mean, I grew up with Black Enterprise being like Black excellence. It's like they were one and the same. So to be on the 40 under 40 list is a complete honor. And to be able to tell my story it's something that I love to do, frankly, because I was a Black girl who grew up in Detroit. I did not come from a nice neighborhood. Like my parents, both of them were incarcerated. So I've had like a wild story. And, for all intents and purposes, like I wasn't supposed to make it. And I did it anyway. And I did it because I was resilient. I did it because my mom, at the end of the day, in lieu of her mistakes, so she sort of still taught me how to be a hard worker. I did it because I ultimately wanted to change the beauty industry and make sure that women everywhere found that they were enough and were able to look in the mirror and say, like, I don't need to become anyone but who I am in order to be accepted by society. And so like, I think that's a story that is inspiring to so many people because a lot of us don't grow up with that silver spoon. A lot of us don't grow up thinking that they can make it. But I think that my success ultimately is your success. And my success completely stems from the fact that, like, I believe that I can do it. And life is all about what you believe and what you make it. So, I started my career on Wall Street. I used to work at Barclays. I started on Wall Street literally 6 months after everything crashed. So it couldn't have been a worse time to join banking. Like literally joined right after they bought Lehman Brothers. This is top of 2009. We all know the crash that happened in 2008 that disrupted Black communities across the country. And here I am starting my career all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. And I was immediately met with sort of like, oh, your hair is different. It's different today than it was last week. Or why do you have on this color lipstick? Or, just questions that make a lot of Black people, specifically Black women in a very male dominated industry, uncomfortable. And I found myself sort of like questioning myself and also just looking at the beauty industry, looking at male dominated industries, looking at finance as a whole and being like, wait a minute, all of this is broken. And that sort of led me down this like path to starting the Lip Bar.
It definitely is an inspiring story, and I'm so glad that you're here sharing it with us today. And I hear that from so many Black women entrepreneurs who made the transition from the corporate space, that they were there. They came up against these microaggressions that you just mentioned. They came up against some glass ceilings, and they decided that there was a better way for them to make a living and make a life. So now
Make
we know,
a life.
yes, right?
That's the key part.
Now we know the why behind why you decided to become an entrepreneur. So I want to ask about the how, because there are so many aspiring entrepreneurs out there who have great ideas and no clue how to get started. How did you figure it out?
Yeah, I mean, I would like to encourage entrepreneurs by saying that no one knows what they're doing. Like it doesn't matter. Like it's not an inherent thing. I always tell young entrepreneurs this, like anyone can be a CEO. Anyone can start a business and put those three letters behind their name. but it takes resilience, it takes drive, it takes courage to be a leader. And so that being said, you have to have the courage to say, sometimes I'm not going to get it right. You have to have the courage to say, sometimes like I won't know what I'm doing, and I have to be comfortable with two things. I have to be comfortable with failure, and I have to be comfortable with learning. And I think it's an easy assumption to say like everybody wants to learn, but that's actually not true. Most people are afraid to say, I don't know something. Most people are afraid to say, I need help. We are oftentimes taught that, we shouldn't ask for help, that we should have it all figured out before we go and tell our story. But I'm the first one to say, I didn't know how to start a beauty brand. I didn't know how to start a business, but I was so willing to learn, and I was willing to fail because I knew that on the other side of failure was an opportunity for growth. And so I literally started the Lip Bar making lipstick in my kitchen. Like I looked at Lisa Price of Carol's Daughter, and I looked at Rich Dennis of Shea Moisture. At that point, it was Nubian Heritage. Like they're making soap, she's making hair care. And I look at them and I take that exposure and I say, if they can do it, I can do it. I also grew up in Detroit, which is one of the Blackest cities in America. And my cousin was an entrepreneur. So I'm like, if he can do it, I can do it. So I took all of that inspiration and I said, I'm sure it wasn't easy for them. And I'm sure they didn't know, all of the steps, and I'm sure they skipped some steps. And so I'm going to take that as my source of truth and just go after it. I started making lipstick in my kitchen because I was reading books on cosmetic chemistry. I was reaching out to cosmetic chemists, asking for feedback, asking for advice. But more than anything, I just started. I started buying supplies. I started reading the ingredients on all of the products that I was using at the time and trying to come up with the formula. The first probably 1,000 batches of lipstick that I made sucked. Like they were so bad. Like they would be pretty in the tube, hard, couldn't apply, wouldn't get color payoff. But the important thing is that I kept going. And every single time I kept going, I got a little bit better. And that's all it's about. It's about getting a little bbit better, because if you focus on just getting a little bit better every single day, you turn around and you're like, whoa, I grew a lot. And so the how is really just being determined enough to not quit. Like I'm not a genius. Most people are not geniuses. I actually think that we overuse that term way too often. It's really people who just didn't give up. Like the Lip Bar is 10 years old, and we didn't grow, like not true growth until probably year 6. Whereas most entrepreneurs quit within their first year or two. I want to say like 50% of business owners who start, they stop within 3 years. I didn't stop when I didn't make money. And when I quit my job working on Wall Street, it wasn't because I made so much money. It was just because I knew that if I wanted my business to give me 100%, I had to give it 100%. So I was like, I'm going to focus on this. Now, everyone can't do that. I was a young college student with very few responsibilities. So like I knew my risk tolerance, and I was able to be very comfortable with that. And I think that is sort of the start. You have to understand your risk tolerance, and you have to be willing to put in the work every single day.
I want to underscore some of what you said, because you didn't say the first 10 lipsticks you made were bad or the first 50 lipsticks you made were bad.
Right.
You were like, the first 1,000 lipsticks I made were bad. And I didn't make money in the first year or the second year, or, I didn't grow really until the 6th year. So there's no overnight success story here to you.
Right, right. And some people do. And I think one of the most critical things about entrepreneurship is like getting out of your head and not allowing this sort of comparison model that we're kind of like constantly trapped in. Like don't allow the comparison of like what someone else is doing or what you perceive them to have to stop you. Because if that were the case, I would have quit. If I would have been like, well, Mac is making all this money and I'm not, I should just stop because like there's clearly no value here. Like I had to believe that I had value, and I had to believe that I could add value to my end customer. And so I knew that as a Black woman, no one was speaking to me. Like Right now, people are talking to Black women. There's so many companies that are servicing Black women, but I was very early in the journey. 10 years ago, it was not as cool to shop Black. 10 years ago, it was not as cool to talk body positivity or we were still sort of like in this phase of not being honest about colorism. And that was one of my immediate goals, to just be honest about like what our experiences are as Black women, and to center Black women, not just like light skinned, curly hair Black women, but like truly all Black women. And I remember one of my most iconic campaigns was when I put a really, really deep toned Black woman in really bright pink lipstick, because there was sort of this assumption that like Black women can't wear bright colors. Black women can only wear browns and burgundies. And I'm like, I call BS. Like, we only believe that because we haven't seen the alternative, and I can create that safe space for us.
Yeah. We've been talking about some of the big picture things about launching a business, and I'd like to get into some nuts and bolts. What were some of the specific challenges you faced in those very early days of getting a startup off the ground, and how did you get through them?
Um, I think one thing that plagued me, and when I talk to young founders, plagues them, is sort of this idea of trust, not thinking that you can trust other people. And I don't care if you're looking to build a small business, a big business, a medium-sized business, you need other people. You cannot do it on your own. And if you try to do it on your own, you will end up resenting your business, because you will become exhausted. Business, although it is glamorized on the internet, it's hard. At the end of the day, it's numbers. At the end of the day, it's impact. And as you grow your team, you have to be accountable and responsible for your customers, for your products, for your team, etc. And so very early on, I had to learn how to trust people with my vision, which meant that I needed to understand how to communicate my vision very clearly and very effectively. And I learned that the hard way by failing, frankly, by having people not understand, or not having the emotional intelligence that's required to lead other people, or to teach people, how I want things to be done. So like that, I think that's something that plagues, founders at an early stage. I mean, there's also sort of the access to capital part, and access to capital is very real. Less than 1% of funds go to Black founders every single year. That statistic, it's changed a little bit, but certainly not
Absolutely.
enough, considering that we are 14% of the population, and we consume at a much higher level than our counterparts. But access to capital is one thing, but I think that the message has gotten a little convoluted, simply because typically you hear people saying that money is their number one challenge, and that's like never true. It's never only money that you need. Maybe you need more creativity. Maybe you need more process. Maybe you need to relook at your business model. So one of the things that I actually don't talk about often enough is like, I actually changed my business model probably 3 years into the business. When I first launched the lip bar, we were actually in the prestige category. So like our products were a lot more expensive. They were $20 and $22. And then I decided that I wanted to serve the mass population. And I took my price point down a whole $7, $8. And I did that because I wanted to, number one, be more accessible to my community. But number two, I saw a bigger opening and more white space in that mass market than I did the premium space. And so I did that 3 years into the business. I figured, I wasn't getting the amount of traction, and I realized the customer that I was serving. And when you think about the net worth of Black families in this country, like a $20 lipstick, especially in 2012, 2015, it's quite expensive. So I reformulated, and I looked at my business model completely different. So access to capital is one thing, but also like I think that we can stand to test and learn our ideas much earlier and much faster to get to that next level.
I talk to tons of entrepreneurs all the time, and I have literally never heard anyone talk about resenting their business. That has to be one of the most honest things that I've ever heard. And so I'm going to ask you just to talk more about, the reality of being an entrepreneur and the hard work and the toll it can take on you sometimes and how you push through that.
Yeah, I'm really honest, and it's part of the reason why the lip bar audience is like so tuned in and why our community is, they are very loyal. It's because I've always been honest with them, and I always intend to be honest with them about everything from like how our products are made or who we serve or why we do what we do. And frankly, like how we do it and what it takes to do it. So my team is 25 women. It's like the thing that I'm most proud of. Like I built a business that's truly like for us, by us, and that like my customers, they should know that I am solving their needs because they're my needs too. They're my team's needs too. And I wanted to make sure that we were able to show up for them by being them. And so the reality is being a woman who started a business in a very scrappy way, and I've been doing it for 10 years. It's challenging. There are challenges. And when you sort of like wear a lot of weight, like if you have 25 people reporting to you and you were never in the position to sort of like grow your skill set, like a couple years ago, I was like, this is tiring. I felt like the weight of the world was on my shoulders. And I remember waking up and being like, wait, Melissa, you are not the lip bar. Like, I'm like, I am Melissa Butler. I am a human. I am a woman. I am a Black woman. And the lip bar is one of the things that I did. It's not who I am. And people would approach me all the time and say like, oh, you're Melissa, you're the lip bar girl. Or no, more specifically, they would say, you're the lip bar girl. And I would say, I'm Melissa, to sort of create that distinction, because I don't want our identities to be caught up in our businesses, because in the event that that business blows up, that's always your identity. In the event that that business like unfortunately tumbles, that's always your identity. And like at the end of the day, you're a human. Like no one is going to be like the CEO of their company forever. So like why make that your identity? It is something that I care deeply about and that I'm so passionate about and that I've committed and sacrificed so much for, but it's not who I am. And I think it's really important, especially like in this age of like branding and social media, that we create some separation for the purposes of mental health. Like if the lip bar, if somebody is cursing the lip bar tomorrow, that doesn't mean that they're cursing me. And I think without that separation, it's really hard to delineate. And if you don't have that separation, it can be a form of resentment if you're like, in our case, growing very quickly and you're not even able to keep up, to the point in which I wasn't really taking care of myself. Like I felt like I was showing up so hard for the business, but not showing up for myself. And that is where resentment builds. And that's where it can sort of like harm you and your business. And so I was certainly at that place like maybe 2-3 years ago. And I had to like be very honest with myself so that I didn't resent my business. Because frankly, I love what I do. I love what I do. I love the customers that I serve, but also I have to love myself. And like, I needed a little separation. Now that might not be true for every founder, but that was true for me.
Mm. You said earlier that CEOs have to learn to be okay with failure. And I know you've said in the past that they also have to learn to be okay with rejection. How would you say that you've built your resilience as an entrepreneur?
That's a good question. I mean, I think just being a Black woman from Detroit, like I am from an underdog city. But yet and still, like I know that Detroit is one of the greatest cities in America. I mean, we built Motown. Hello, Stevie Wonder, Marvin Gaye, Diana Ross, like all the greats, Anita Baker. Like I'm from a very resilient city. I am from a hustler city. Like I was raised by hustlers. And so I knew that like hiccups didn't mean that things were over. And so even when I talk about like needing to create separation from like me being a human and me being a business owner, like I felt like that was okay too. Like, I think that there are going to be times where you go through seasons throughout your business, throughout your life, and you have to know that nothing will be perfect, and you won't appreciate the sun if it never rains. You won't appreciate the heat if it's never cold. And I learned very early that, change is inevitable and change is good. And so I think I built up my resilience by understanding that, frankly, change is going to happen, and looking forward to the change, because I know that, like, that's when your world can, like, change for the better.
One of those hiccups was your appearance on Shark Tank. You've talked about it before, but can you please share with our audience what happened and how it sort of shaped how you moved forward as a CEO?
Yeah, I mean, Shark Tank is it's like a hot topic. We went on the show. We didn't get a deal. They were incredibly rude to us, like mean. They called us colorful cockroaches. And so, it was definitely a moment where I felt defeated in that very moment. But because I am resilient, because I know that things won't always go the way you want it was one of those things that, like, okay, this was the failure of today. Tomorrow is going to be another failure, because I've gotten quite comfortable with things going wrong and not allowing those things that go wrong, not allowing them to define me. And so I didn't actually change from Shark Tank. Shark Tank allowed me to sort of, like, I think, show the world that it's okay for things to go wrong. And, like, I always tell people, like, I didn't start my business for Shark Tank, so I certainly wasn't going to stop my business for Shark Tank. And as an entrepreneur, like, something is going to happen every single day that's going to, impact, could be your self-esteem, could be your bottom line, could be, a myriad of things. But it's your job, if you believe in what you're doing very fiercely and very passionately, which, if you started a business, I would hope that that is true for you, that you just keep going. And so Shark Tank was just, like, for me, it was another blip on the radio. It was like, okay, this happened, and tomorrow something else is going to happen. And it's my job to figure out how I'm going to respond to it.
You told us earlier that you started out making lipstick in your kitchen. The Lip Bar now has a full line of beauty must-haves that are available in more than 1,000 Target and Walmart stores across the country, and you also have your own flagship store in downtown Detroit. How did you grow from there to here?
Um, yeah, I don't know how I grew. I think for a lot of years my head was just down. I'll never forget, I have a friend who is an entrepreneur now, and one day she came to me and she said, "Melissa, I finally understand why you didn't go to brunch with us." Because, like, there were so many times where I just, like, I sacrificed, and they would be inviting me to hang out or brunch or, like, go party. And for a couple years, like, I was just head down. And it's your responsibility as a friend, as a wife, as a mother, as a cousin, as a sister, etc., whatever place you take up in someone else's life, for you to communicate what your goals are, so that people can choose to support you in your goals or not, so that you don't have to feel bad for not showing up. They should understand why you're not showing up. And it doesn't mean that you should just be a recluse and not do anything, but it also means that if your goal is to build a business, you may have to sit some brunch dates out. You may have to sit some dinner parties out. And so that's certainly a place that I've gotten comfortable with. And it's not always true. Like, it sort of ebbs and flows depending on the season that I'm in, depending on my goals. Like, and that's true for business and even lifestyle. If I'm like, you know what, I I want to lose 5 pounds, or I want to tone up, like, I know that I'm a better person and when I work out in the morning. So I have to work out in the morning, or I'm not working out. So maybe I can't hang out all night because I really want to hit the gym in the morning. So it's about having the confidence to say, I'm going to make a decision that is going to impact me tomorrow. I want to plant the seeds today so that I can eat the fruit in the future. So it's like, it's a mindset thing. So that is absolutely how I got here. It's believing that, like, my hard work would pay off and that I deserve the success that I wanted.
As you look back over your journey of building this company, are there any specific tools or resources that stand out for you that really helped you, or any one piece of advice that you would share with other entrepreneurs who are scaling their business?
Yeah, for sure. If I were to start my business again right now, like knowing all the things that I know, it's actually not that much that I would change, except this one thing. I would have gotten a mentor earlier, and I would have been more comfortable saying, I don't know how to do this, or I want to do this, but I don't know how. Can you show me? We oftentimes get in our own way, and we're getting in our own way because of our egos. And so, like, if you put your ego to the side and you decide to pursue your goal without ego, it really allows you to be in a place, in a position to receive, because you're not trying to prove you're knowing on anyone. So I would absolutely get more mentors earlier, and I would be comfortable sharing my goals while also sharing my opportunities with them.
I started my questions for you with your bio, and we're going to come full circle. The other thing that immediately stood out to me is that you are, excuse me, is that you are proudly self-made. What do we need to do as a community, whether that's qualities that we need to nurture within ourselves or support that we need to offer to each other so that we can have more self-made moguls under 40?
Ooh, that's a juicy question. I think if we want to get to a place of having more self-made moguls under 40, we have to get really comfortable with spending our money in our communities. Like, when I talk about the Lip Bar serving Black women, like, Black women are our center. We sell products that can work on people of many complexions, but we truly center Black women as a part of our conversation, as a part of our innovation pipeline. Like, we are thinking about us first. And so, that being said, I know that the women that I serve don't only shop Black businesses. And I'm not even talking about just the Lip Bar. Like, we are not saying, like, okay, if these Black owned companies are going to solely focus on me or primarily focus on me, why can't my dollar also primarily focus on them? And that is unfortunately not our reality. I think it is changing. I think that we are moving into a space where we're excited to support small and shop local and support Black and Black women. But it's not happening at the rate in which we are starting businesses and investing in businesses and investing in ourselves. So I would just charge us with making sure that, even as business owners, when we are thinking about spending our disposable income, that we are trying to make sure that we are impacting our communities, because that Black woman that you supported is going to hire other Black women. That Black woman who you supported is going to make sure that she is investing in her community. That Black woman who you supported is going to pay taxes in her local community so that our schools can actually be better. Like, we talk about like education and generational wealth, but it's like, if we're not doing it at a systematic level, we're going to fight a very hard fight. So let's keep our money in our communities so that we can see like the true benefits of entrepreneurship.
I have so enjoyed talking with you. Thank you so much, Melissa, for sharing your experience and your insight with us today. And thank you all for watching. Stay tuned for more from our 40 Under 40 Summit.
Thank you for having me.